The 2 days crossing through the Panama Canal was full of stress, emotion, elation, information, and physically tiring. But what an experience.
Callum, what are we doing? We're going under the bridge. Is it a big bridge? Super cool.
We had loaded up the lines and fenders the day before our allotted slot, and the line handlers joined us in the morning.
Is our bus going to clear, babes? Is our bus going to clear?
Hope so.
The given time is only a guide, and you have to stand by the VHF all day. As it was, we were called up 2 hours earlier than planned. You miss the call, you miss your slot.
That's us in the channel with the big ships.
Once the pilot boards, you head up to the locks. Yachts generally raft up 3 abreast, and we tied up to 2 other boats, Barbazul, a big catamaran, and Borosari. Yachts also go through the original smaller locks, but the ships going through with us seem big enough. I won't lie, I've been pretty anxious heading in, and I'm sure it shows in the video. Being tied up to big Marmaduke Barbazul took some of the pressure off, and I started to enjoy it. There was also a great confident pilot on her who took overall charge, and that gave everyone more confidence. The water drops into the locks pretty quick, and I'm glad there were 3 of us rafted together to absorb the wash. Before we knew it, we were at the top of the first lock and began heading into the next 2 locks and into the lakes. Okay, that's us. The last of the locks up. We're entering into the lakes. Once up in the lakes, we disconnected from the other boats, moored up on big designated mooring buoys, cracked the beers and chillaxed for the night.
Breakfast on Irene. With the line handle with.
The line handles. Busy, eat your breakfast. Day 2 of our crossing broke overcast and a bit rainy, which was actually quite welcome. Although not great for the video, at least it kept the blazing equatorial sun off our backs.
Crossing the shipping channel now.
Interestingly enough, the whole Panama Canal system relies on the rain. There are no pumps in the locks and water is only gravitated down from the lakes. If Panama ever has a bad drought here, the canal will run dry and world shipping will be thrown into turmoil. Our pilot boarded early and we were soon in amongst the busy traffic around the locks we had just exited, trying to find our way across to the red channel markers. Day 2 is a full day of motoring. The distance between the locks through the lakes is 80 kilometers and the speed required is a constant 5.5 knots. Dropping below 5 knots incurs heavy penalties. Breaking down is not an option, and our pilot was eager to increase my anxiety by telling stories of broken down yachts paying $50,000 fines. We had a favorable wind most of the way, but when I mentioned putting some sails up, I was quickly shot down by the panicky pilot, claiming it was not allowed due to previous incidents between sailboats and ships. I'm also pretty sure our pilot was overly cautious and a bit nervous. He basically had me on the channel markers, aiming for the red buoys and hopping around them as we got to each one. All the while, I watched the other 2 yachts pulling away from me as they took the shortest route through the channel, and only going to the buoys as the ships came up. Although I had scrubbed the hull and serviced the engines prior, I could have done with some shortcuts, as the Irene's poor engines were at full stick the whole trip.
Train.
Show us where the train is.
Up there.
Okay.
And it's chocolate.
It's what?
It's chocolate.
Oh.
The lakes themselves are incredibly beautiful and are basically an inaccessible wildlife preserve. Although there are crocs on the banks, lovely bird life and alluring jungle noises, there is no stopping in the canal.
Going next to the Panama Canal.
Yeah.
After one last push through the final hills, which incidentally are still very unstable due to all the dynamiting during the build, we managed to catch up to Beaut just before she went into the top lock. Being tied up to the big blue Mama Duck, Beaut was a big relief and the excitement levels started building. The lock officials must have known how excited we were, as they were absolutely awesome and let us sneak past the big Stenner bulk to the front of the locks for an absolutely spectacular first view of the Pacific Ocean. I wanted to enjoy the Panama crossing and to be as easy as possible, so I used the agent Eric Galvez for everything, including getting us 3 experienced line handlers. These guys were awesome and helped with advice on where to go and what to do, and handled the lines and the docks perfectly. Having them on board for the nights in the lakes was an absolute pleasure too. And just like that, we were in the Pacific Ocean. As the third lock gate opened, I was overcome with so many emotions. We had travelled as a family from the Indian Ocean, 8,000 miles across the Atlantic, and now here we were with the wide expanse of the Pacific ahead of us. Irene, the star of the show, had never once faltered. We had met and befriended some incredibly awesome people on the way, and seen so many awesome places. And now, more than ever, our little family unit floating across the universe was as strong as ever. I won't lie, I may have even been a little bit teary as the view of the Pacific opened up in front of us. Panama City was the first major city we had seen, and quite an assault on the senses. Even the kids had forgotten how to use an escalator. We took full advantage of the facilities there though, and got a lot of jobs done. The new toilet was a big bonus, but by far the most exciting was a new Yamaha 15 horse for the pillager.
Alright, brand new Yamaha, let's see if it starts first start. Started! Yay!
But we didn't hang around the city long. As soon as we had a whiff of northerly wind, we were headed south for Ecuador. But for now, Irene out.